The world began to unlock its doors and open its windows. Signs of life sparked quickly with the resurrection of humanity. The heaviness of 5 painful years rolling away. With the worst behind us, we all started reclaiming our lives one piece at a time. The bomb, the fallout, cut a wide gash through society, claiming lives, poisoning the land. But I made it through. I am a survivor. And to think, it was only a small war. Only a small bomb, as nukes go. I lived most of those 5 years in a community fallout shelter just outside the Dover Silver Lake exclusionary zone. Lockdown had atrophied my mind and will. Every night I prayed for this world to be cleansed. That something, or someone, would hear my pleas. Then I'd pass out on my FEMA cot in a dark corner of an open dormitory, where the stink of cabbage and the cries of fussy children were always present. I was lucky. Once I was out, and the radioactive contaminants had reached acceptable levels again, I booked a trip to see my family in Texas, followed by a vacation for myself in Mexico. To stimulate public spending, flights were cheap. Hotels, the ones that survived, splashed grand deals to lure people farther afield, at least those who could afford it. I poured all my savings into this. 3 whole weeks of hearing and seeing other people again. New people. People I loved, not displaced strangers. Perhaps I'd meet someone. How long it had been. My itinerary began in Guadalajara, followed by Veracruz, the pyramids on the Yucatan Peninsula, and finally, Mexico City. Most of my time would be spent there as I wanted the sounds of life to fill my head. Sirens, shouting, laughter, curses, the aroma of street food, live music. I wanted all of this. A fresh start. My own resurrection. It was my last day in Mexico City, and only one place left to see. Templo Mayor. Built by my ancestors to declare their ingenuity and celebrate the blood that appeased the gods. When the temple stood in its time of glory, skulls of the conquered and the pious decorated wooden stakes for all to see upon arrival. This was a monument intended to awe and instill fear, a place of sacrifice and burial ground for its victims. Today, only the ruins remain, a headstone to a vanquished civilization with its people absorbed by the ground or dispersed like seeds blown by a strong wind. I am part of that history, a 50-50 mix of conquistador and the conquered, according to one of those mail-order ancestral DNA tests. I bought myself one as a Christmas present, the last Christmas before the bomb. My body pumps mestiza blood, and ever since I was a child, I had a deeper desire to immerse myself in a culture I knew I didn't fully understand. Years ago, before the bomb, I visited the catacombs in Paris, which were just as macabre as this place. However, I didn't pre-book a tour and had to wait in a miserable cold drizzle for an hour. When I had the chance to finally descend the staircase leading to the portion of the catacombs still open to the public, I had to push past other tourists to read the well-lit signs telling us the history. It was a unique experience, but too many people to take your time. For Templo Mayor, I arranged for a private archaeological tour with a small group. I thought perhaps we could spend a few evenings together if we got along. Maybe make some friends. Many of my close friends were gone. A few of them died in the initial impact. Most succumbed to radiation sickness. Another chose suicide. My heart ached, grieving those losses. As I waited for Gabriel, a PhD student from UT Austin working on opening unsealed chambers of the temple who would be my tour guide, I scanned the blackened remnants of the temple that sits in the center of a busy city. I shuddered imagining what it would have felt like to be led up the great stairs that would have been brightly painted to be gutted and consumed. Or, what if I was a priest, thinking blood was the answer to the world's problems? He stood with the setting sun to his back. The strawberry blonde hair highlighted his soft brown eyes. He was better looking than the selfies on his outdated blog. I wonder what his touch would feel like. I had lived in desperation far too long.
You made it.
You won't believe it, but the others canceled. Too much partying last night. It's just us. Hope that's okay.
They're lost, I suppose.
He looked so good I didn't care that I'd be alone in the dark with a stranger. Quite the contrary, in fact. My phone was fully charged and I felt comfortable in this city. I found it curious he was the only one offering such an off-the-grid tour, but every city had some element of that.
Work stopped on the excavation recently. They found something extraordinary. These little tours provide us with extra cash while we're here. Most academic research being done these days was funded under the guise of cancer research, for obvious reasons. Even one of our grants contains a provision to look within the ruins for a rare mold which may have cancer-fighting properties. We're going to enter the site through that cathedral. You see it there?
Another monument to sacrifice and blood. An attempt to explain what is unknown. Christ did tell the disciples to drink his blood. Priests self-flagellated until their backs ripped open. The church lay as silent and still as a bedtime prayer. Not a single person sat in the pews. The candles flickered as we entered with the faint scent of incense clinging to the air. I couldn't help but notice the drop in temperature. This cold, it's uncomfortable. I should have brought a sweater.
I should have warned you to dress more warmly than one normally would for Mexico City.
He led me to the bolted wooden door at the back of the church. He took a key attached to the side of his red, white, and blue backpack. Quaker colors. What's with the U-Penn backpack? I thought you were from UT Austin.
Oh, that. I grew up in the Alleghenies, so all of my friends went to UPenn or Penn State or Carnegie Mellon. I was the black sheep. I hitched my wagon west. Be careful going down the spiral staircase. It's more narrow than you'd think.
The stone steps looked ancient with a string of lights overhead. I followed his lead through the cramped space. The air felt warmer and wetter the farther we descended. I could smell the damp and a sour staleness in the air that was too strong to ignore.
Watch yourself. This tunnel's only about 5 feet high at the bottom. I find that I fit easier with my backpack slung in front of me.
I can fit easily, though, if I crouch. More tunnels, huh? Wow. Do you know how many tunnels connect to this chamber? My mouth was open in wonderment, and I stepped farther into the room. Stones carved with the images of gods lined one wall. Skulls and bones neatly created adjoining walls. You could see the jagged seams of the craniums, some with large gashes from a head blow. Black pits that once held eyes stared back at me.
Bring her back. A final sacrifice to bring her back.
I turned to see a flint blade with a bone and turquoise handle in his hand. Those beautiful eyes that drew me in were as black and hollow as the skulls watching us now. His body blocked the tunnel leading back to the church. I was trapped beneath the city, inside a temple used for this very purpose.
You allowed yourself to be led to your own grave.
There was only one way to go, deeper into the tunnel. I had nothing on me to fight with. I bolted towards a light hanging by a wire attached to the stone, all down one of the bone-lined tunnels until I could see clothing crumpled on the ground. The dirt surrounding the severed body parts glowed bright crimson, but not wet. The flesh appeared freshly torn. My eyes widened at the sight, fully understanding what I was seeing. A physical representation of the great stone disc found here.
Did you find it yet? One of the greatest finds ever, isn't it? Truly magnificent. I recreated it in flesh.
The decapitated and dismembered parts of a woman lay in a circle. It is the story of Coyolxauhqui, Huitzilopochtli, burst from his mother's body as a full-grown man. Huitzilopochtli killed his siblings and dismembered his sister. Her head flung to the sky and became the moon. I tried to control my gag reflex and fled because I wanted to survive. The past 5 years had taught me that. I glanced back. Gabriel was following close behind as if in a trance. He knew I had nowhere to go. Panic and fear surged, pounding in my head and neck. I don't want to die. Give me the strength to live. Show me what I need to do. The deepest trench in my heart acknowledged this was most likely a futile ask. No ears listened down here, just as I knew no one heard humanity. It still made me feel better to utter the words. Ahead, I could see the tunnel diverted into a dark space. Perhaps I could hide. Maybe I could wait until morning when work resumed. I ran towards the dark that was beginning to consume the illumination from the single light. I put my back to the wall, feeling stone and bone beneath my fingertips. I inched deeper down the dark tunnel until my hand hit something hard. Wooden. I bent down and grabbed it, bringing it to my chest. The top felt metallic, both ends spiked. Some luck. The only sounds were his footsteps, his voice, and the distant din of cars above my head. Sweat slid down my spine and between my breasts. I couldn't tell if it was from the ambient temperature or my fear bringing a sudden fever followed by chills. 1,000 breaths of the slain uttering their last words upon my skin. A light approached with his steady voice. He had a flashlight attached to his head. I moved deeper until I hit another wall. A dead end. I would have to fight. Blood would be spilt, but it wouldn't be mine. In the light, I could see I held a pickaxe. It was small, the kind you use on soft dirt or rock. It would have to be enough. Come closer and I will use this! He cocked his head with a wide grin, exposing his teeth like a predator, before rushing towards me, dagger in hand. I raised the pickaxe ready to strike. My entire body tightened. Before he could reach me, I swung with all my strength, screaming out my fear and grief in the process. My heart burst at the veins, and my scream didn't stop until it pierced his skull. He slumped on the ground. Blood oozed from the wound in a steady stream, and brain matter clung to the tip of my axe when I yanked it out. But it did not pool. The earth soaked the red liquid, drinking it with vigor. As I watched, I could feel breath against my neck, and my skin turned hot.
Mestiza blood, you have arrived. Many thanks for the final sacrifice. You shall be my new priestess.
I turned to see a woman, her skin as brown as mine, with glowing moons for eyes. She looked like the relief found in the temple. Naked to the waist, her full breasts hanging low. The moonlight in her eyes pulled me towards her like the currents of a vast ocean. My thoughts were no longer my own. In her eyes I saw the end of it all. Death to the world. The war, the bomb, fallout, all the suffering we had experienced was but the first wave of many. I fell to my knees in piety.
Yes, may the new cycle begin.
My name is Paige, and I'm the host of Reverie True Crime. Reverie means to daydream, but even daydreams can turn into nightmares. Join me as I tell you haunting and horrific reveries about missing people and senseless murders. I also interview survivors and people seeking justice for themselves or a loved one. New episodes come out every Monday morning, and sometimes you'll get bonus episodes on Thursdays. Wherever you're listening to this current podcast right now, you can find Reverie True Crime.
Hey! Are you that weird one in your friends group that loves to watch true crime documentaries? Have you ever wanted to learn more about the lesser known crimes? And are you fascinated with ghost stories? I'm Hannah, the creator, editor, and host of Murder Bucket, a podcast that talks about, get this, murders, paranormal activity, abductions, kidnappings, and weird stuff. Join me every Tuesday wherever you listen to podcasts to get the inside scoop on some of the most interesting topics in the true crime world. I am also very active on social media. You can find me on Instagram at MurdBucket, Facebook at BucketMurd, and Twitter at The Murder Bucket.
Harker was as frightened as he was curious. How could this woman be much older than he from the stories, yet look the same age? She handed him a glass pipe with painted bores on the side. "Smoke this," she said. He looked at it skeptically, forgetting his manners.